Welcome once again, nerds, to the news. This week in news, the music section brings us Jack White versus Donald Trump in the most recent edition of Even Great Musicians Can Be Dummies Sometimes. Gaming section brings new AI features, gaming and tech, I should say, brings new AI features to YouTube. Comic Books and Books is going to give an easy jump-on point for anyone who is not reading Marvel yet. In TV streaming, the creators of South Park are apparently just avoiding the election this year altogether. Plus, this week in movies, we sadly have the passing of an icon in the sphere, and the rumor mill has a bunch more Green Lantern stuff to discuss. And then we've also got other things as well. This is going to be quite a big episode. Not as big as last week, but we're going to get to all of that. Let's jump into it. Like I said, this week in music, we have Jack White v. Trump. The battle ensues. Let the games begin, as it were. We also this week have Unto Others very unceremoniously getting dropped from the tour they were on. And we have a lot to talk about with Linkin Park. So the music section, as per usual, is going to be rather large. Okay, so we're about to get super verbose. Music section, follow-ups and corrections. This one's going to be kind of peppered throughout because there's more than just the one piece about Linkin Park, but we gotta address the Linkin Park situation. I think actually I'll roll a fair amount of this up in the follow-ups and corrections, but either way, Linkin Park. So last week, I'm gonna apologize off of the top for this one because I didn't actually get last week's episode posted until after the Linkin Park reveal for whatever the hell they were going to do. Well, now we know exactly what they were going to do. I theoretically, I guess, could have recorded an addendum to that, so my apologies, but yeah, just not part of the way I do the process, and, you know, set whatever. It's an apology either way. So we could have talked about this last week, and we didn't. So we're talking about it now. So the big reveal, obviously, the rumor was true. I guess this is kind of a confirmation for a rumor that from the rumor mill, but the rumor was true. They were, in fact, replacing Chester with a female vocalist. Not exactly the end of the world. It kind of is what it is, as long as, you know, she's a good vocalist. Those are some giant shoes to fill. So let's talk about this female vocalist. Her name is in the notes. It is Emily Armstrong. There's actually two other new members on stage, kind of. They had a different guitar player than their regular guitar player, but he is a temporary fill-in from the sounds of things. And if you go by the music video that they just released, that's their normal guitar player in the music video, and the temporary guy just did the live reveal for some reason and is also doing the tour that they're about to go out on, but we'll get to that in the tour section. And then they have a new drummer altogether. The new drummer's name is Colin Britton. He also is a producer, so interested to hear how or if the production changes on this record from the last record. I mean, obviously, it's been a little bit of time since we got new music from Linkin Park, so the techniques and things are going to be different, but it'll just be interesting to see how that has changed. So, all right, so Emily Armstrong, let's talk about this. She is from a band previously called Kill Sarah, if I'm remembering that correctly, because that is not in the notes. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Kill Sarah. And if you haven't listened to them, they're not bad. They're definitely not overly aggressive. Like, they're borderline like indie, kind of like an indie punk thing, like indie pop, indie rock meets really safe version of punk rock, but not bubblegum punk. Yeah, either way, they're worth a listen. So go check them out. Emily Armstrong is apparently a Scientologist, and that was a big situation for a number of reasons, not the least of which the whole Danny Masterson thing. When Danny Masterson was in court, she showed up to one of, if not the first court date for Masterson as support for him. And so Cedric from the Mars Volta and At the Drive-In, the vocalist from those two bands, his wife is one of the victims of the Danny Masterson situation. And so he is not a silent person about it. He also is a former Scientologist, as is his wife. So another thing that he's not very silent about. And so when the announcement was made, it was brought to the world's attention that this was a thing in Emily's past. So she had to address this. And then also Chester's son has recently come out since the apology from Emily has come out and said, there's a lot of really like overblown, like very emotional reactions. So I don't want to like diminish the way these people feel because they are very emotional situations and for good reason. But Chester Bennington's son has come out against this addition to the band. Not exactly because it's a replacement for his father, because like, I'm sure he knows, just like the rest of the actual band knows, that Chester would not want them to stop making music because he can no longer participate in the making of said music. I think that the issue is more, even though some of the vocabulary he uses seems to imply that you're replacing my father and that's the bad thing. No, I think more his intent for coming out against Emily is her history with Danny Masterson and with the Church of Scientology and with supporting somebody who is convicted at this point. I shouldn't just say accused, a convicted and is doing many years in prison rapist. And because Chester had a past where that was done to him as well. And this is not secrets that aren't known by basically the masses. So yeah, it was just a really hairy situation, and that's all just the periphery. That has nothing to do with, we're not even talking about the performance yet, because that's also part of the big reveal, is they had effectively a performance. They did a live performance while revealing Emily. So we'll talk about that in just a moment as well. But so Emily has come out and said, I do not support this person. I do not support aggressors. I can't remember the exact vocabulary that she used, but she stated it in no uncertain terms. I do not support victimizers. I think the victims are the ones who need to be upheld and glorified effectively, that they need to be the ones who are focused on, and the victimizer should be sentenced and put in a hole to rot, effectively. I'm getting much more colorful, I'm sure, but that's kind of the gist of it. So she had to come out and make that statement because, like, how can you have a public persona in one of the biggest bands in the world without distancing yourself from the stupid things you did years ago? Makes perfect sense. Also, if you know anything about the Scientology situation, I'm not going to call it a religion because I really can't buy into that terminology for that group of people, but and that's a whole different conversation for another time, probably never a video on this channel. Either way, if you know anything about the way Scientology deals with its members, then you know that a large part of the indoctrination, a large part of bringing people in is kind of brainwashing them. And part of participating in that organization is like forced participation in a number of things, and a number of rather unsavory things, not the least of which is like intimidation of former members, intimidation of people who are speaking out against the organization, like very vehement like these people are relentless. There are a number of documentaries. I believe there's one on Netflix that I watched not too long ago, the Leah Remini, I'm pretty sure, documentary about her journey leaving Scientology and all of the things surrounded around that. And then there's another one, I think, also on Netflix that's not even a celebrity who left the organization, just a regular person, and the way they were treated and how they're similar to the high profile members and such. It's just really crazy. So her participation in that, I'm not trying to make her into a victim per se, but honestly, to a certain degree, I view most of the people who are part of the Scientology Scientology organization as victims to a certain degree, just because they're looking for a place to belong, and then they get brainwashed into thinking this is the way of things, and it's just a really messed up situation all over. So yes, her support for Danny Masterson was disgusting, and it's a good thing that she has distanced herself from it. I think that is sufficient I think in any reasonable light. Anyone who's not close to the situation, much like Chester's son, should accept, I think, her current place in life is not the same as it was when she was effectively forced to support Danny Masterson. So that, I think, is where we should leave that part, because everyone who has a colorful past, we'll say, and has learned from it and is distancing themselves from the negative elements of it, should be allowed that grace. That is, again, that's where we're going to leave that part. So let's get into the performance, shall we? Mike Shinoda has come out recently since this performance and said that Emily is not trying to do a Chester Bennington impersonation. She is not up on stage trying to sound just like Chester. I think there is a little bit of truth to that and a little bit of smoke and mirrors there as well. Because yes, there are, if you watch that live performance, which I would absolutely recommend, I mean, Linkin Park live is very entertaining. Those guys know how to put on a show, even if like half of the band are not actual member or not original members or whatever. Still, it's a really entertaining show. If you like live music, that is a pretty good representation of Linkin Park live. I've seen them twice, I believe, in actual live, not on live video, but very interesting situation. I really, really dig them live. And so if you listen to her performance, there are a number of spots where she very clearly is pitching her voice down. You can hear her speak, you hear her natural singing voice, her natural alto, and then you hear her try and pitch down. Granted, yes, I mean, like, you have to be able to move your vocal range a little bit, or the range for the individual song, in order to fit what was already written, because a lot of this music is previously written. Most of this music is previously written. We'll get to the new song into the new music and videos section, but yeah, so she tries to pitch down in certain respects to fit the notes of Chester. And when she does that, you can see like concentration come across her face, and she is very clearly trying to resemble Chester. Maybe it's not an impersonation, but the resemblance is an attempted resemblance, at least. So there's that. And then there's, like I said, there's the sections where she kind of just does her own thing. And again, after having listened to her first band, Kill Sarah, you can hear the similarities of where her voice comes from in that band and where her voice is now with Linkin Park. There's a lot of similarities there. So you can see kind of what she naturally does as a vocalist. And that's pretty cool. Like, and even those parts where she's kind of pitching down to match Chester's delivery, those work. It's not terrible, it's not great, and there's a lot of stuff going against her at that point. This is our first time on stage with these guys in front of the literal world. Yes, they were in LA for the performance, but they were live streaming on the biggest video platform in the world for the world to see. So she was ostensibly performing for the entirety of the world for this. So that's gonna do something to your nerves. I don't care how big her previous band was. It was not Linkin Park big, and that's a bit of a change. So I can chalk up a fair amount of that performance where it kind of sounded a little weird or off or whatever to nerves. There are a couple of issues though. I can't remember exactly. I should have been taking notes, but I had to rewatch it because I was at work when it originally aired. And then when I got home, I was working on the edit. So I was basically watching it in bed. So I wasn't taking notes while I was watching it. I was just enjoying the music. I can specifically remember there were 2 separate songs where she had, again, Chester was an amazing vocalist. Those are some gigantic shoes to fill when it comes to the expectations placed on this poor girl, going forward in trying to perform these songs as written by Chester Bennington. And there are definitely 2 spots in there where it was absolutely bad. I just was looking at the screen going, I hope that is just because of the nerves, because you know they were rehearsing this set for at least a week leading up to this, probably more, just because they are professionals and they're all kind of rusty. It's been a little while since any of them have performed on stage, let alone with a new person in the band, a new vocalist no less. So they had to have been rehearsing this for some time, and that couldn't have been missed because those 2 moments were so glaringly bad. They could not have been something that they just said, oh, you'll hit it on stage. That was probably sections that she was focusing on. And then, again, I'm going to chalk a little bit of this up to just nerves and just the situation at hand. But I would be very surprised if they continue to do... If they continue to do those songs, which they probably will because they're big songs, they only did the hits. They didn't do any real deep cuts except for the new song. They didn't really do any deep cuts. It was all the songs we all know by freaking heart. So they probably will continue to do those songs, but I would imagine that she's going to find, and if I can remember to do it while I'm editing this, I'll try and put the song titles up on the screen, but it would require me going back through the entire hour set and finding those 2 spots. But either way, if they continue to do those 2 songs, like, she's going to find a different delivery that doesn't sound like Chester, because she was obviously trying to hit those notes that Chester hit with ease, it would seem, and very much missed them. So I don't know. I'm not gonna just crap all over him because it was still entertaining. Like, she did a fine job. It wasn't great. Sadly, I definitely had high expectations that were not met, but again, it's the first time she's been on stage in front of an audience with this band, and it's the first time she's been on stage in front of an audience that is the literal worldwide. So I think some of that can be excused. I still have high expectations. I'm not just going to throw them out because the first performance was bad or questionable or not great, but I think my expectations are brought down just a little bit after seeing that first performance. All right, so that's our follow-up from the music section. I promise you I'm going to minimize the verbosity going forward because that was a lot, I understand, but we had to talk about it. So moving from the follow-ups and corrections, let's talk about the new music because we do have quite a bit of new music. A couple of bands that I think I have said previously that we're not going to talk about anymore are still in here. And yeah, just because these new tracks from them are dope. So let's get into it. First one is one of those 2 bands, and that is Spiritbox. They have dropped a new song called Soft Spine, and this actually, the other song's a Ginger song, and they kind of have a weird thing in common in that the lyrics are kind of minimalist, which super duper works when you're writing such aggressive music. And this, again, I think Spiritbox really, really shines when they really get into the aggressive side of things. I think the fact that they have the more melodic and mellow side is one of the elements that kind of gives them their own spot in the scene, right? But like, I think that they are one of the better heavy bands on this side of stuff too. And that's kind of the thing that makes them really difficult to pigeonhole into a subgenre. Yes, they're metal, but like, Are they deathcore? Are they metalcore? Are they whatever the hell Evanescence is? Like, you can't really kind of put them into one of those spots because they do all of that stuff. And they legit do all of that stuff well. I just think they do the really heavy stuff the best. Oh, this song is so great. I'm gonna stop gushing, let's move on. That is an absolute recommend. Our next song this week comes from a band from my childhood, and that is Filter. Filter, they've put out a new record within the last year. This comes from that. The name of the song is Burn Out the Sun. The evolution of Filter is super interesting because they all met while working for Trent Reznor. And so the first record is very much like an industrial kind of radio rock, friendly industrial, if you will. They have kind of since dropped the industrial side of things and they're just leaning into that radio rock. But I'm totally here for it because these guys can write a hell of a song. And it's not even that it's like an earworm that it just sits in your brain and goes over. I mean, maybe Hey Man, Nice Shot or Picture. You take a that will sit in your head for days. But by and large, like just their music in general doesn't do that. It's not annoying. It's just good. So I wish more radio rock sounded like this. And on that note, we're gonna definitely recommend you go listen to the new Filter track, Burn Out the Sun. Our next one comes from a band called Shallow Rising. This is the most recent outing from Chris Adler, the former drummer of Lamb of God, and oh boy, it's definitely different than Lamb of God. It's also, I'll give it this, it's better than the last project he was attached to, because that one was like borderline, oh, what's his name? David Silveria's new band levels of not good. But he did that song with Michelangelo Badio, and he's definitely one of the best drummers in metal music. It's just, I don't know why he felt like he was getting pigeonholed in Lamb of God when he's basically been doing radio rock ever since. And that's kind of what this is too. There's really no edge to this. There's really no show of force. Not that every song has to be like at the peak of your abilities, but this is barely like for a marathon runner, this is a jog around the block. This is not anything to write home about. It's not bad, but it's like, you are Chris freaking Adler. You should be in one of the biggest bands in the world. You formerly were in one of the biggest bands in the world, and now you're doing this. It seems like you're playing it safe, bud. I will say, go check out this track just so you understand where I'm coming from. Obviously, if you have a different opinion, by all means, let's have that conversation down in the comment section or over in the shout out show. Doesn't matter to me, but it's kind of a very weak recommend as far as this goes, and really just for anthropologic reasons. From there, we got another one from Opeth. Also, I guess a little bit of a correction from the last time we talked about Opeth. I said it was S1 because that was the way it was presented on my radio when I first heard it, and I didn't hear the actual song title until long after I had recorded the episode. So it's not S1. That symbol that looks like two S's kind of attached at the top and bottom, is a paragraph symbol in legal terms and not in writing terms. The writing version of a paragraph is a P with an extra line standing it up. So that's why I was like, I know what that is, but I can't really place it. Paragraph 1 was the first one. So the new Opeth is paragraph 3, and this record is just going to be amazing. This song, though, not as heavy as paragraph 1. Paragraph 3 definitely does not do much with the guttural tone from Mikael Åkerfeldt, but still, just Opeth. As much as they were doing that throwback kind of prog sound up until, I guess, kind of the last record was where they started to ditch it again and go back to their heavier roots, this record is just completely blowing it off while still kind of tagging a little bit behind. It's gonna be amazing. Again, gushing, let's just move on. That's absolutely a recommend. Go check out paragraph 3. Our next one comes from, this one was really super interesting, actually. So, I'm not gonna be able to say this band's name very well, so I apologize. I'm also not gonna be able to say the name of the song very well, because it's in like an ancient language, kind of like Hailung does. A lot of this stuff is actually going to be very, very similar to Hailung. We've talked previously about a band that did a very Hailung-esque thing called Nightland, and they did that cover of Wait and Bleed. That was strange, but mesmerizing all at the same time. This band is Vigunder. The name of the song is Grow Galder, and they're another Hailung clone, but I think this one is more worthy of that title. I think Nightland was fine, like they didn't do anything poorly, they didn't do anything like bad, they just didn't do it nearly as well as Hailung, whereas this one, while there are strong similarities to Hailung, there's also an element of this that sets it apart from what Hailung does. It's only one vocalist, no real focus on the band, though it does sound like there are some more traditional elements to the music making side of things. So yeah, definitely sets itself apart from Hailung, though very obviously just Hailung did a thing that we really dig and we want to do that thing as well, so let's do that. That's kind of where this sits. Definitely recommend, full hearty recommend, go check it out. I'm not gonna try and say that band name again or the song name, so you can find the link down in the description to all of these tracks. Our next one comes from Entheos. This is a band we haven't talked about previously. They have one single out on Liquid Metal that gets played with some regular rotation. The new track is called 1,000 Days. I did not fully understand, like I definitely knew that they had a female vocalist. I just thought they were splitting duties a little bit, that there were, because I mean, I'm sure to some degree they are, but she definitely takes a lot more of the vocal weight than I was anticipating by just listening with my ears, because she has a wicked scream, a la Tatiana from Ginger, or Opeth, from Otep. She's got a very beefy scream that doesn't sound like it comes from someone in such a diminutive package. So very interesting. Again, the name of the song is 1,000 Doors. This is a lot more blasty than their last track as well. The last track is kind of almost borderline new wave of American heavy metal sounding. This is very much a deathcore, like even borderline like black metal kind of sound. Death metal, I'm sure, thrown in there for good measure. Like, not exactly what I was expecting based off of their previous single, and very much welcome. This is showing a lot of like breadth of abilities and style influences, and super fun to listen to. So full hearty recommend for Entheos's 1,000 Days. Go check that one out. Our next one, all right, here, now we're getting to the Linkin Park. Super clever naming scheme, and again, I'm totally here for it. I'm very intrigued by what this new record is going to bring. I don't remember exactly when it's coming out, but there is a release date for it. I'll try and put it on the screen. It's recommend. Go check out Empty Miss Machine. It's a good track. Our next one, like I said, lots of new music this week, guys. Our next track comes from Memphis Mayfire. All right, the name of the track, let's not get ahead of ourselves. The name of the track is Infection. There was a hot second where I really dug Memphis Mayfire. It was, I think, because they were on tour with Atreyu, so they were really bringing out some of the more heavy things, because at the time, it was before COVID, so at the time it was still Atreyu as heavy as Atreyu's ever been. So, and then Ice Nine Kills was also on the bill, who are also growing on the heaviness scale. So they kind of were bringing it out. So I was like, I don't know why I never listened to these guys before, because this was pretty great experience. And then they've put out a couple of singles since then, and now I remember why I've never listened to them extensively, because they just write really bland octane chord nonsense. This is not great. It's recorded very well. The production on it is fantastic, but like, that is kind of a staple for this subgenre of the metals, is it's just good quality production. You can't really, that's one of the expectations of the genre. Metalcore, generally speaking, is freaking amazing on the production side of things. Thank you very much, Adam D from Killswitch, for that. But aside from the production level, the performance leaves a lot to be desired. The arrangement of this song is really, really predictable and bland. There is a moment of hope where they go into a breakdown, but then the breakdown gets cut so short, it's like, well, then why even have that halftime section? They revisit it again at the end of the song, but for even shorter amount of time with other elements stacked on top of it, so it really detracts from it. I don't know, I just feel like these guys are not as good as songwriters as they want to pretend they are, and I cannot recommend you check out the new Memphis Mayfire. I don't care if you're a fan. I mean, if you're a big Memphis Mayfire fan, you're gonna love it because it's Memphis Mayfire and it sounds just like their last few records, but like, if you haven't listened to Memphis Mayfire extensively, this is not the track that's gonna change your mind. Let's say that. Next we have, like I said, we have another one from a band that I thought we were done talking about because they were, you know what to expect out of Ginger. Well, Ginger has put out a new track from their upcoming record. This is now the second track from that upcoming record. This one's called Rogue, and I apparently spoke too soon because this is not that I ever questioned that they're one of the better, newer bands, but this is just a absolute reaffirmation that they 100% are one of the better, newer bands. The guys behind Tatiana are incredible musicians. Like, there is not you're never expecting where they're going. Even if it, you know, you look at it on paper and it does resemble a traditional song structure, it does not feel like a traditional song structure. So yeah, super excited about new music from Ginger. This new track is a banger. This is another like stupid heavy song from them. Tatiana's really digging into those growls once again. I feel like the last record, it was more of a production issue on her voice that just didn't really accent the really warm bottom end that she has when she gets into those growls. It sounds like they fixed that problem with the new record. So go check out the new song Rogue from Ginger while we anxiously anticipate the new record. From there, we have one final track. This one's a bit of a mishmash of artists involved. So it's Billy Morrison, technically, is who the song is accredited to, but it's featuring Corey Taylor and Steve Vai. The name of the song is Incite the Watch. This is more radio rock, like Corey is wont to do when he's doing basically anything outside of Slipknot. So nothing necessarily wrong with that. He's always going to be one of my favorite lyricists, arguably one of the best lyricists of the last 20 or so years. But not a good track. Like, again, production's fine, performance even is fairly fine, like the actual playing of the notes and singing of the melodies, sure, that's fine. It's just the structure leaves a lot to be desired. Corey's vocal is super predictable at this point. Like, if you've listened to either of the CMFT records, like, this is kind of belongs on one of those as far as his performance is concerned. Even the Steve Vai solo is like, okay, nothing to really write home about here. So, I mean, it's a song that's noteworthy because it is these three artists together, but that's really as far as I can say that this is worth listening to, because it doesn't really set itself apart from any of their previous works. So sure, go listen to it, but you're not going to be super impressed. It's just going to be one of those things that's like, oh, that's on again. All right, tours and festivals. Interesting this week on tours and festivals because we actually have I think it's two separate tour pieces that are anti-tour news. we'll get to that. The first one is kind of making up for what was at one point anti-tour news, and that is Heart, the band Heart from the 80s. You remember them. I believe they might have even started in the 70s. I didn't do my research, or my homework rather, properly on their history, but that's irrelevant to the fact that they're going back out on tour. So they had to, at one point, the beginning of the year, they had to postpone the rest of their Royal Flush tour, which is the tour that they were on, because who was it? Ann Wilson, one of the lady, the vocalist, I believe, is Ann. She had to undergo some cancer treatments. She's been stricken with cancer, and she had to go get some treatments, and then she had to recover from those treatments because cancer treatment is really hard on the body. But they have officially rescheduled the rest of the tour that was not finished. It will take place in 2025. Starts February 28th in Las Vegas, runs through April 5th in Quebec, Canada. And if you previously had tickets, much like any of the ones that we've talked about recently that have been canceled or moved or what have you, I'm looking at you, Devil Driver. If you previously had tickets, then those tickets will be honored at the new dates. It was not made clear if you were unable to attend the new date, if you would be able to get a full refund. So definitely check with whoever you bought your tickets through. If it was through their website, Bands in Town, Ticketmaster, I'm sure it was Ticketmaster, but definitely worth a look if you are unable to do it. But the link in the description will take you to the page that will show you exactly where all of the rescheduled dates are, and you can assess from there on your own time. From there, our next one has to do, again, we're back to Linkin Park because they're on tour as of today, as you're watching this. September 11th is the beginning of their new tour, which is crazy. They have been working stupid hard. They recorded a record, which will be out soon. I don't remember exactly, once again, when the record's coming out, but then they're going on tour about a week after the reveal of this new vocalist and new drummer. Like, that's pretty insane. That's kind of how it should have been done too. I think props to the guys in Linkin Park because you're coming back strong, and that's the way to do it. I think the one kind of issue I have with this is it's only, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dates on this tour. Presumably there will be more in the future because, again, new record. So once the record comes out, I would hope that they're going on a proper, maybe worldwide, maybe just North American tour, what have you. But these 6 dates are already sold out. They went up for early sell to their fan club, and so you had to join the fan club, pay dues to be part of the fan club, and then you got access to potentially getting tickets. Apparently the tickets sold out in literal minutes when they went up. So tickets are no longer available for this tour. So I'm not gonna, there's no link for buying tickets because I'm not going to link you to third-party sellers because I think that stuff's ridiculous. Part of the issues that Ticketmaster is having right now is those third-party sellers. Anyway, so the dates are September 11th, 16th, 22nd, 24th, 28th, and then the final one is November 11th. So really interesting. I'm kind of super intrigued by what's going to come out of this, if anything. That's all we have for Linkin Park. Let's move next to Unto Others. I used to play back in the day when I was doing the local scene. There was a band called Do Unto Others that from Iowa, I believe, and so every time I see Unto Others written down, that's what goes through my head. You didn't need to know that. Let's get to the touring news, shall we? Unto Others, we talked about the fact that they're going on tour with Wasp a couple of weeks ago. Well, apparently they have been kicked off of the tour with Wasp before the tour even starts. So the official reason that was given to them, according to the band on their social media, the official reason that was given to them from Wasp was that they did not support, or they did not provide a marketing plan to the overall tour manager for Wasp. Which the band says, actually, we submitted a number of marketing plans to you, and you just never responded to us. So what the actual hell is going on? To no response. There has been no word from the Wasp camp as to why this has happened, short of the little bit of information that Unto Others was given and then made public after the fact. This is the second band that has left this tour before it's gone out. I honestly can't remember who the other one was because it wasn't in the notes, because, say it with me, class, I take amazing notes. But yeah, they are the second band. I don't think the first band was kicked off the tour. I think they had to leave the tour shortly after saying that they could do it, and then something happened. And so now Armored Saint is the band that replaced them. But yeah, this whole Unto Others thing is really, really messed up. To the point where, like, they're just like 2 or 3 weeks away from when the tour is supposed to start. So that doesn't give them time to reschedule dates to book their own tour to make up for what their fans are going to be missing. So eventually we will get a tour from Unto Others. They have a record coming out very, very soon, October, I believe. So like we're looking at some prime touring time for Unto Others, and they're not on tour. And they also had to cancel a festival date that wasn't necessarily related to the Wasp tour, but because they were going to be on the Wasp tour, that was what was going to take them effectively to the festival. They were going to do the festival and then rejoin Wasp a day or two later. That had to be canceled even because they're now not going to be in that area to attend the festival. Just such a clusterfuck. Yeah, so that's what we've got. As soon as there is an update on this, we will be following up. And then our final piece of touring news also is anti-touring news, and is also from an artist that we don't talk about a bunch on the channel. I think I've done a reaction to some of his stuff before. I'm also a fan. Childish Gambino, aka Donald Glover, is currently on tour and has had to postpone the remainder of the tour. I don't know exactly how many dates were left on this tour, but they're getting postponed, all the rest of them. He's postponing them because he has physical health that he needs to attend to. From the sound of things, the current stage production that they're putting on for this final tour, quote unquote, is very physically demanding, and apparently he's not up to the challenge to do it every night. So he said on his socials that he's going to have to postpone it for quote unquote a few weeks, and then they'll reschedule those dates. And again, if you were supposed to go to one of those dates, keep your whatever ticket receipt you have, digital or otherwise, because they will be honoring existing tickets at the rescheduled dates. So that is definitely a thing. Once those rescheduled dates are made known, I'll try and be on top of it. And stuff outside of the heavy metal and hard rock genres is a little bit harder to keep on my radar, but if I can find them when they get rescheduled, we'll talk about it. We'll do the follow-up thing. That's though what we have for tours and festivals this week. So now let's get into regular ass news. I told you, music section's huge this week. Probably bigger than last week, I would venture, because last week was like a 30 or so minute section. This week, I believe we've already gone over that line. And we still have 1, 2, 3 more pieces to talk about. So let's get into regular ass news. Our first one, the big one, is Jack White versus Donald Trump. This is as of, what was yesterday? Yesterday was Monday, as today is Tuesday. So Monday night, the September the 9th, Jack White made it known. I don't know exactly when. I'm sure it's on the piece of information, but I didn't write it down in the notes, and so I'm not looking at the filing right now. But Jack White filed suit against Donald Trump because Donald Trump used Seven Nation Army, and I don't know exactly how it was used. I haven't been able to obtain the court documents just yet, though I will definitely try and get my hands on the full court documents so that we can really get into this. But so this is apparently a different situation than the Foo Fighters previously. So Jack White is suing Donald Trump because they used Seven Nation Army in a video. The issue with that being, when you pay for the rights for a piece of music, there are different sets of rights depending on how you intend on using it. And so the report from the White Stripes camp is that the rights that were paid for were for the live presentation, so it was at a rally or at the RNC, I don't know exactly which. Those were the rights that were paid for. So when they used the video clip from that event in a video to promote Donald Trump's presidency, run for presidency, that's where they crossed a line. So they, wow. So they're suing for misappropriation of music rights because they didn't pay to use it in a video, they paid to use it at a live event. This is really just sounds like more posturing from musicians who don't care for Trump. Jack White said on his social media, on his Instagram, quote, this musician fights fascists. Let's see, I might have put this one in the notes actually. No. No, I did not. Either way, something about fighting fashion. This machine fights fascists or something like that. Which is a Woody Guthrie appropriation of a Woody Guthrie quote, this guitar fights fascists. Because Woody Guthrie was actually fighting against fascism and the ideals of fascism, whereas Jack and Meg White, aka the White Stripes, are just trolling somebody they disagree with. There's a pretty big difference there. But this just appears to be posturing. Like, of all of the lawsuits that have been brought against Donald Trump from musicians for a similar purpose, again, Foo Fighters threatened to do this, and then they realized that they were just full of hot air because they paid for the rights to use the thing. And then in 2016, there were a number of other artists, not the least of which being Bruce Springsteen, who tried to do the same thing, and all of the ones who have actually brought suit against the Trump campaign have lost. So that would lend one to believe that, okay, this is probably going to lose as well. It sounds like, though I don't remember the specifics of those previous issues, it sounds like there is a little bit more to go on here because of the different rights that were paid for. So maybe they have a leg to stand on, but really, this just really looks like posturing. This looks like them saying, we don't want Republican types to use our music because we believe in equity and we believe in, you know, socialism and the other things that come with being a progressive these days. So we're not even going to get into that conversation right now, but yeah, just really looks like they're trying to virtue signal to all of the people who listen to their music, which you would just want to reach out to them. And some of the people in the comment section of this Instagram post where Jack White laid out that this is what's going on, said very explicitly, like, you realize that conservatives listen to your music too, right? So you're basically alienating approximately half of your fan base by saying silly things like this and by posturing yourself in such a way to make it look like you're trying to be anti-conservative. Which, you know, makes sense. The other interesting part about this is, like, it doesn't even sound like Jack is coming from a place of, like, trying to keep politicians honest. It really sounds like he's just trying to troll. He's just trying to virtue signal for the sake of virtue signaling. Because this stems from when the video in question was posted on X was back in mid to late August, so we're at least 2 weeks ago, and has since been brought down because I'm sure they realized the error in their ways and they went, oh crap, we can't use that clip, at least the audio from that clip, because that's not what we paid for the rights. Presumably that's what happened. But when that happened, Jack White then took to social medias to call Donald Trump a number of names. The first of which being Don Old, O-L-D, as in he's commenting on the age of the, like, you realize your candidate was older up until he was forced to withdraw from the, whatever. So, like, childish name calling is what started the attack from the White Stripes in this instance. And then he perpetuated a very long since debunked talking point from progressive sides where when Donald Trump called, was it service members lazy or slobs or just unsavory names that Donald Trump was supposed to have said, and it has since been debunked. He never said such things about service members in general. I believe he was saying something very specific about a very specific person and not about people who have served this country. Matter of fact, if you go back not too far, just approximately a week or so ago, maybe a little more than a week at this point, where they were honoring the fallen service members in the withdrawal from Afghanistan, he was the only presidential figure there. The other two who are currently in office, who very easily could have attended, were nowhere in sight. Didn't even respond to the request to show up to the family members of these fallen soldiers, who is really the fault of their death is on the heads of both Biden and Harris. But again, we're not going to get into the conversation necessarily. I mean, I'm sure I've already said enough that somebody in the comment sections go, actually, this is why you're wrong. I will have that debate with you, but I'm not going to do it right here on camera because we've already spent way too long on the music section. So, as things come out of this, we will be keeping tabs on Jack White trying to sue Donald Trump for misappropriation. And again, this one might actually have a leg to stand on, though I don't know how much money he's actually going to be forced to pay if he is found to be at fault in this situation, because as soon as it was made known that they had done something they shouldn't, they corrected the issue. So, I don't know. We'll see. Let's continue on. Our other piece of regular ass news this week has to do with the Super Bowl. The freaking football season just started. We already know who's going to be playing the halftime show at the Super Bowl. I just thought it was really interesting because Kendrick Lamar is one of the biggest solo art, like he is he's what is it, unsigned, what is the word I'm trying to think of? I'm brain farting exactly the proper terminology for it, but he doesn't have a record label. Kendrick Lamar does everything himself, and well, again, it's been a long time since I've really looked into that, so it could have changed since, but I'm pretty sure that's still a thing. So yeah, just really awesome to see somebody with that kind of work ethic get to the level where you're performing at the freaking Super Bowl. So congratulations to Kendrick Lamar. He's going to be performing at the halftime show at the Super Bowl this year. That is the last piece of regular ass news we're talking about this week in music, which brings us to our suggestion for the week in music. Suggestion for the Crow soundtrack. It is spooky season. We still have that garbage Crow in theaters, kind of. It's going to be streaming very, very soon, but Garbage Crow is in the theaters. Show them that you don't want any of that nonsense by listening to the soundtrack for the original 1995 movie. That soundtrack is epic. It is one of the most iconic movie soundtracks, especially on the darker side of music. Like, it is just a phenomenal piece of work in and of itself, even removed from the fact that The Crow, the movie, is also fantastic. This soundtrack, if it was just this collection of songs without being attached to a movie, would still be equally as epic. So please go listen to the Crow soundtrack, the original motion picture soundtrack. That is your suggestion for the week. Sponsor spot for this week is gonna be quick because we're trying to do a quick episode in general. So, Dubby, sponsored, partnership, whatever, with the channel. Find the link in the description. You can use the code Generally Nerdy at checkout to get 20% off for the month of September. And it's cheaper than buying the cans, and it's actually quite tasty as well. Plus, you're getting more than just caffeine. So if you want to get $1 per drink instead of $4 per drink, that should be motivation enough. Go check out Dubby by following the link in the description. Use code Generally Nerdy at checkout so that I do get a little bit of a kickback. You can help out the channel, plus get some yummy goodies for yourself. Dubby, thank you very much for the partnership. Let's get back to the news. Gaming and tech this week. YouTube is planning on new AI features for creators that we got to talk about. Bungie has released a roadmap for Destiny 2 that might help things out over there. Plus, we have Mortal Kombat is really about to blow up in roughly 2 weeks. I promise we're not going to be quite as verbose in the rest of the sections this week as we were in music. There was just a lot to talk about in music. So let's get into trailers for gaming and tech, because we don't have any follow-ups or corrections to make. We do have kind of 2 new trailers for Mortal Kombat 1, though. And honestly, if you're a Mortal Kombat fan, if you're deep into the lore, like, both of these trailers are equally as exciting. But if you're just playing, you're a more casual player, you don't really get into the mythology, then the big trailer is the one that you're going to want to watch. But either way, both of them are freaking exciting. We have the reveal for Noob Saibot gameplay trailer. We have the tease from the night before, and then the actual trailer from yesterday morning as you're watching this, or this morning as I'm recording. I have Noob Saibot tattooed on my skin. That is the level of fandom I am at with this guy, and so super freaking excited for this to happen. He became my main. I started with Scorpion like I always do, because overall I am a big Scorpion nerd, but the dichotomy of Scorpion and Noob Saibot is kind of the biggest draw to this franchise for me. So the fact that we're finally getting my other, like, I can't even call him my second favorite character. It is just my other favorite character in this franchise. And just the gameplay tweaks that we have already seen in these two trailers that we're hopefully going to get a little bit more in the Kombat cast before this drops in 2 weeks. I'm super stoked for this, and you freaking should be too. If you are a member of the fighting game community, not even just Mortal Kombat, if you just like fighting games in general, I really feel like the last two updates that Mortal Kombat had, and then assuming Cyrax, Sector, or Noob don't break the game going forward in 2 weeks, then the other tweaks that we already know are coming, and then the ones that are likely coming, it's just going to be, it's not been better than this. It's finally, and this is an argument that plenty of people have made, it should have launched at this level. And honestly, I think it's even better than where it should have been when it launched at this point. This is, I almost want to say this is my favorite Mortal Kombat game of the modern era. I'm not gonna go so far as to say it's my favorite overall, because then you're never gonna get better than UMK3. I think UMK3 definitely takes the cake as far as just overall. You got great mythology, you got fantastic gameplay. This is still a game that people play in tournament at this point, and it's about almost 30 years old at this. So yeah, never gonna be better than UMK3, but I think this is the best game of the modern era easily, and by far better than anything that came out in the 3D era. So yeah, Mortal Kombat 1, check out the trailers. It's worth your time. Let's move on. Let's get into some regular ass news. That's all we got for trailers. Regular ass news this week. We're gonna start things off. We have a couple of AI things to talk about in gaming and tech, because we do talk about the tech whenever I, you know, do proper research for gaming and tech section. But we have Amazon's Alexa is the first piece. There was an announcement that they're no longer going to be moving forward with the Amazon in-house AI models. They're going to be instead using Anthropic's Claude AI to power Alexa. So Alexa is about to get a little bit smarter, and that's kind of interesting. Also, for those of you who are on Amazon fairly regularly, they've recently rolled out a number of AI things. So not the least of which the AI suggestion. You can talk to the AI chatbot and say, I'm looking for a this. Can you help me find the best options? And then it'll give you a list of options that you can find on Amazon. So presumably, I have definitely seen some things, like there's an Austin Evans video where he's playing with this chatbot, and it gives him a list of I think it was gaming keyboards. So he's looking for the best gaming keyboard under a certain amount, and it gives him a list of gaming keyboards. None of them are actually available on Amazon. So you got to play around with the chatbot a little bit. But the reason we're talking about this part of this is I just want to see if you have had an interaction with this. Is it going okay? Because I'm curious. I'm not one to really do that on Amazon. If I'm using an AI chatbot, I'm using probably Claude or GPT-4 or maybe even Meta, and I'm using it for creative purposes, just spitballing ideas and kind of bouncing back and forth. I don't actually, or using it to summarize articles for the show so that I can kind of get more succinct with my notes, but I don't necessarily trust it when it comes to like actually spending money. So I'm curious what your experience has been. From there, we have another piece of AI to talk about, and this time it's YouTube. YouTube is currently developing AI tools that are going to help with the detection for music and faces. So presumably what this is, because there wasn't a whole lot of details here, just the announcement that they're doing the thing, and they also announced that they're rolling out, or planning on rolling out soon, rather, new tools for creators as far as just AI in general, how that's going to help creators. Again, very vague kind of language, but the faces and music situation, as far as the creation side of things on YouTube, presumably they're going to get better with the music detection and also the music removal, because very recently they rolled out the option for music removal via AI. It's just not very good. Why would you want to remove music from your YouTube video? Let me explain, shall we? So let's say you are at Comic-Con and you're creating content and you're walking by a booth on the sales floor and they're playing music that is copyrighted music. And as you're walking by, the microphone you're talking into picks up some of said copyrighted music. It's only 30 seconds, say, of said copyrighted music, and it's not even the focus of the video that you're making. It's just incidental sounds that happen to be there. Well, if the content ID bots on the YouTubes find that music in your video, usually what happens, and sometimes it gets a little bit more severe than this, but usually what happens is you are unable to monetize your video. If you're lucky, you can still monetize to a certain degree, but not full monetization. But usually you are unable to monetize that video because whoever owns the copyright to that clip gets all of the monetization for your video. It's not fair, it's very broken, it's just the state of things, I understand. So what they rolled out in this AI stuff, it was about a month ago, I wanna say. It could have even been a little bit longer than that. What they rolled out is the ability to, through the use of AI, remove that incidental noise in the background so then you can maintain all of the copyright to your own video. But anyone who has used that has learned that it is actually not good at all. It makes your voice sound absolutely terrible, almost unintelligible. So presumably this announcement is, hey, we recognize that we didn't do great with that. We're gonna make that better. Also, we're going to make recognizing faces easier so that when, you know, people try and put famous faces on, say, a deep fake of Tom Cruise saying he's gonna what was that video that was going, the way he mops the floors or something like that. It was somebody put Tom Cruise's face on like a janitor, and then they used the voice replacement and made it sound like Tom Cruise as well. So they're going to be able to detect when that happens, and I don't know what exactly from there they're going to be doing. Are they going to say you have to take that video down? Are they going to just remove your ability to monetize that video? Are they just going to put a little thing like Instagram does that says this video made with the help of AI, something along those lines? That part has not yet been made clear, but they're working on the tools to get to that level at the very least. So very interesting. I don't know how I feel about this one either. Just tools that are coming to, I mean, the music thing's cool, assuming they make it work better, because right now, like I said, garbage. But yeah, we will be, oh, and then the other side of this was they're working on creator controls for AI training, because Google is trying to train Gemini because it's not very good. So what they have done and what has been done by third parties, there's a whole level of this that really, if you want to get into the nitty gritty of it, go watch Linus Tech Tips. I think it was one of the, either last week's WAN show or the week before's WAN show, that they get into the kind of the nitty gritty of how this works, how they obfuscate. Well, we didn't scrub the information. It was this third-party company that then created the model for our AI, and we're just using the model. We're just benefiting from the scrubbing. We didn't actually do the scrubbing ourselves. So Google is now put between a rock and a hard place and are forced to do something else. And that something else involves giving creators the ability to opt in or out, presumably opt out. You're going to automatically be opted in, I would venture. Presumably opt out of being a part of any future data scrubs. So what they did was they took a lot of larger channels, so I'm not at any risk of being scrubbed, but took a lot of larger channels and scrubbed through their transcripts and scrubbed through their video descriptions and used that to help train AI models. So now you can opt out of that as soon as they officially roll this out, because it hasn't been rolled out yet. But again, presumably you'll be able to opt out of any future scrubbings that would do such things. I would imagine a lot of creators are going to opt out of this because it just feels a little dirty to not. So that's what we got there. Moving right along, our other piece for regular ass news this week in gaming has to do with Destiny 2. Bungie's new roadmap for Destiny 2 outlines some major changes, including 2 expansions annually instead of just the one that they currently are doing. These expansions are going to feature more non-linear campaign formats, gameplay styles, and roguelike survival shooter. Alongside these paid expansions, there's also going to be 4 free major updates every year as well, which will introduce activities, events, and rewards into the pool of things that already exist. The first expansion, codenamed Apollo, is set to launch the summer of next year, so 2025, and will follow a non-linear story approach as opposed to their previous expansions that have been rather linear. The current expansion, Final Shape, was delayed. Definitely, we already know this because of the layoffs that were forced upon Bungie from Sony, because Sony said, hey, you're not meeting your numbers. We got to axe some of those employees. So yeah, pretty interesting there. Hopefully that is enough to right the ship, or at least a start to being enough to righting the ship of what's going on over there. That being said, that's what we got for regular ass news this week in gaming and tech. Let's talk now about suggestions in gaming and tech. Again, I'm broken. I have not been playing anything other than Mortal Kombat 1. The current state of the game is better than it's ever been. I am slightly addicted, I must admit, and it's about to get even better because Noob Saibot is launching in 2 weeks, plus the new DLC is launching in 2 weeks. So if you have not yet picked it up, it's probably on sale at this point, so you can get it for cheap, get all of the DLC characters, and brush up on your Mortal Kombat, because it's about to get much more sweaty with the expansion. Yeah, just Mortal Kombat 1, that's your suggestion. I don't know what else to tell you. W break. And for those that are questioning whether or not there's actually, I mean, I wish I could show you. It's not just water, but it's too yummy to fake. Like, I legitimately like the Calio cream. I might just have to go get another tub of this when this one's gone. In comic books and books this week, we have a really interesting development. If you're not currently reading Marvel, and the reason for that is you just don't know where to start, well, they have a new partnership that's going to make that actually strangely easy, depending on exactly what characters you're interested in. Plus, we have an update on the DC Elseworlds series that's got me pretty hype, as well as some actual comic book trailers to discuss. Comics this week is bigger than anticipated. We have a follow-up to talk about. It's Elseworlds. We talked previously about how they're reviving Elseworlds. Well, as part of that revival, they're reprinting the OG Elseworlds books. Like, they're printing them in collections, so it's going to be a few different trades that they're putting them into, but like, super stoked about this. The classic Elseworlds books are, I don't have a date on them yet. So if a date is available, I did not see it. I'll try and find it and put it on the screen if it exists. Otherwise, they're just coming soon. Honestly, I think volume 1 of the Batman collection is already available, because I saw the cover art for volume 1 and for volume 2. Either way, if you don't know what Elseworlds is kind of DC's What If situation. So Marvel has What If, where they write, it's a very mini series usually, where they explore what if Spider-Man was British, or what if Captain America was British. I know that's repetitious, whatever. What if Spider-Man was the Sorcerer Supreme? What, you know, they go through these kind of things, which is kind of a way of looking at the multiverse, and they've used it to that extent. DC, though, started this trend with the Elseworlds stories, where it was just some different thing, and some of the biggest DC books were technically Elseworlds stories. Very specifically, the Superman Red Sun. We have Killing Joke. Started as an Elseworlds. It was so popular, though, that it got brought into the main universe, and they kind of sort of changed the implication at the end. But that started as an Elseworlds. You have the Gotham by Gaslight is an Elseworlds, which we're getting an expansion for in the new line of Elseworlds books. Super good stuff. A lot of really great writers just having fun with these characters under different circumstances, and it's fantastic. I'm so excited for this. Like, I honestly, one of the things I do when I find a way to get to Comic-Con when I can go is I look for Elseworlds books. So the fact that they're reprinting them in collections has me really excited to finally have a lot of them in physical form. So if you're not excited about it, I'm sorry. You should be. Let's move on though. Next up, let's move into the trailers section. We have 2 trailers this week to talk about. Normally we don't have any in comic books and books. First one is the new Iron Man story arc that is about to start. It's going to be on shelves in October. The writer is Spencer Ackerman. The artist is Julius Ota. This looks pretty freaking crazy. I'm not familiar with Spencer Ackerman at all, but like that sword though, right? Whoa, what the hell is that? And then like you get a weird like instance of the Hulkbuster armor, and this definitely is going a long way. I think part of the reason why we are starting to get trailers a little bit more frequently, at least if this week is any indication of what's to come, is because sales are down, and so they have to hype up these things that they're doing that are exciting, and that sword excites me a lot. So yeah, go check out the trailer for the new Iron Man book. Link in the description as per usual. Also, the other trailer we got this week is for the new Exceptional X-Men book, which is going to be the Kitty Pryde version of the X-Men. The writer on this one is Eve L. Ewing, and the artist on this one is Carmen Carnero. This one slightly less hype, but still definitely looks interesting, doing enough to pique my interests, if you will. So yeah, I'm probably gonna thumb through it when it gets on the shelves at my comic book shop. I don't know if I'm actually gonna buy it, but I'm probably at least gonna get issue number 1 for that Iron Man, just so I can see what the hell it's all about, because that looked dope. Anyway, that's what we got for trailers this week. Let's move into regular ass news. We only have one piece of regular ass news, but it's pretty intriguing as well. So if you're familiar with the For Dummies book series, where it's explaining very complicated things to people who want to get into said complicated things, there's a million different For Dummies books. Also, The Idiot's Guide to, very similar line of books, though not the same publishing company or anything like that, but very, very similar. They're doing that with Marvel Comics. They have already rolled out with the Fantastic Four, not the Fantastic Four, which one is it? Yes, Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four is the first one. Marvel General Book is the one that's already rolled out. The next one to rolled out is Captain America, and then we're also on the very near future going to be getting Fantastic Four and Spider-Man. These are not necessarily storybooks. These are for beginners books. These are the books where if you're not a comic book reader currently, and the reason for that is because you just don't know where to get in. Well, Marvel has teamed up with the For Dummies book people, and they're writing Marvel Comics. For Dummies is a thing that's on shelves right now. Next one is Avengers For Dummies, right? I'm remembering, no, Captain America, I'm sorry. Captain America For Dummies, and then Fantastic Four For Dummies, and then Spider-Man. Like, you have Captain America is more recognizable recently because of the amazing movies that we got in the not so distant past. And then you have 2 of the biggest names in comics in general. You have the first family of comics, Fantastic Four, and then you have Stan Lee's personal stand-in in Peter Parker. Spider-Man is the 4th book on this list so far. So it's going to be covering everything from the creation of the character up to modern comics, though I think anything after like even mid-90s is probably not going to, like, it's going to be really funny because it's really good stuff up through into even, I would say, even into the 2000s, early 2000s, but 2000s nonetheless. And then it all kind of falls apart. So it's going to be really interesting to see how people who haven't been reading comics kind of take the shift, because they have to outline that shift. They're covering that spread of time. Like, you have to see that shift happen at the end of this book, right? So it'll be really interesting to see how people receive it. But yeah, that's what we got for our regular ass news. You can find a link down in the description that will take you to takes you to Games Radar, and then that takes you to where you can purchase these. I'm sure you can find them on Amazon. I'm sure they're at Borders these days, but yeah, that's what we got for regular S News, which brings us to our comic book suggestion for the week, and it is The Crow, the original comic book from 1989 on Caliber Comics. I believe Caliber Comics was purchased by Marvel Comics, so if you're looking for a reprint of this, that is very potentially on Marvel Comics, if memory serves. Either way, The Crow, the original James O'Barr book that the 1995 movie was based on. Supposedly the new movie was based on it too, but don't take that as any indication of the quality. This is some of the best dark, again, we're in the Halloween season, so that's why we're going with the theme. And The Crow has been on my brain recently because that abomination in the theaters right now. So yeah, The Crow, the original book, written by James O'Barr, art by James O'Barr, color by James. Dude just did it all, and honestly had a strong hand in the creation of that first movie in '95 starring Brandon Lee. Just fantastic all over the place. That is your comic book suggestion for the week. If you want some really quality gothic art and gothic storytelling, then The Crow is the place to go.
Subscribe. That is all.
TV streaming this week, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, the South Park creators, are apparently just avoiding the election altogether. We're going to talk about that. Plus, we have the Neil Gaiman situation just got worse in certain lights, and The Tonight Show is showing signs of the times. That and a bit more, so let's do this. So follow-ups and corrections in TV streaming is not going to start off super happy. We have brushed up against the Neil Gaiman situation out of necessity previously. So TLDR, he's been accused of some pretty heinous things, and he is currently in legal issues as per dealing with said heinous things. I don't necessarily want to get too much further into the details of that because it's fairly irrelevant to the story at hand. Just know that they're not good. They're very, very bad, and if he is found guilty of said things, then he very potentially is going to be going to prison for a certain amount of time. So, because of the Neil Gaiman situation, we have an issue with the Good Omens TV series over on Amazon Prime. And that issue is the third and presumably final, or is third, fourth, final season is all that is said on the announcement, but the final season, which I think is the fourth season, which is currently in production. They are actively filming this season, has been put on hold because of the association with Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman created the Good Omens story, and now he's in this crazy trouble, and so they had to, oh, just sucks. Just sucks. No real indication as to how long it will be put on hold, if it will come back at all because of the association with Neil Gaiman. Just all kind of, which at this point I feel like, I don't know, I guess he was a producer on the show as well, so that makes a little bit more sense. But I was gonna say, like, it feels like it's so far removed from its original inception that, like, you would think they'd just be able to distance themselves from him, you know, fire him as a producer, and then say, we're no longer associated, we're just going to continue to tell the thing. But then you run into a situation where he's still technically going to gain monetarily from the existence of the thing because he's the creator. So, like, I don't know, it becomes a very, very messy situation, and I'm very intrigued to hear your take on whatever the hell's going to come out of this, but that's what we've got so far. We do have one other follow-up this week. It comes from DCU, James Gunn's DCU, and it is the Creature Commandos. We have December 5th is finally the announcement for the release date for Creature Commandos over on Max. So, yeah, it's happening. Finally, we know when. So there you go. That's real quick. Let's move now into trailers. We got a couple of really cool trailers, though not exactly super nerdy. One of them is really nerdy, but not all of them. The first one is probably the least nerdy, but if you're a fan of It's Always Sunny, then it's really interesting either way. Caitlin Olsen has a new show. It is going to be on, I didn't put down, what's ABC, I think? I could be wrong. September 17th, though. Trailer in the description. Link to the trailer is in the description. That will tell you where it's coming. It might be ABC, it might be NBC. I can't remember. But it's finally Caitlin Olsen, because she did a different series before. She plays Sweet D on It's Always Sunny. She had I don't even remember the name of her previous series because it was basically Sweet D in a different context. There was no real stretching of legs for her. This new one, High Potential, right, is the name of it? Yes. High Potential still looks like, I mean, it's a very crass character. I'm sure that's not a coincidence, but it looks like it is a different character from Sweet D this time. So super excited to see her start to like stretch out with her acting and comedic abilities because I love her on that show. Just It's Always Sunny is one of the greatest television shows in history. Like by no stretch of the imagination do I have to argue that. It's we're 17 seasons into it, so it speaks for itself. Yeah, so go check out that trailer. It's super exciting. Next one, probably the nerdiest of them. Well, I don't know. The last one's pretty nerdy too, but gaming-wise, we have Arcane Season 2 dropped a trailer, the final trailer before the season comes out. Looks exciting. I didn't watch Season 1 yet. I'm probably just gonna binge both seasons when I finally get around to it. It's on my list of things to watch, but I just haven't watched it yet. We'll probably talk about that like next year in the That Just Happened show when I finally get around to it. But yeah, Arcane Season 2 dropping sometime in November. We don't know exactly when, but it's coming in November. And then our final trailer is one that there's a lot of unexpected about this one. First of which being that it is Uzumaki. Junji Ito is the creator of Uzumaki. Junji Ito has a series over on Netflix already called Psycho, I think is what it was. It's fantastic. If you haven't watched it, it's an animated series, it's anthological, so each episode, actually some of the episodes are even two different stories that are separate from one another, but each episode stands on its own. And Junji Ito is one of the most depraved minds in entertainment these days. Like, dude knows how to do horror like nobody else. And somehow is able to make cartoons frightening. I'm thinking of the Mold episode from the Psycho series, just absolutely terrifying. Oh man, gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. So Uzumaki is like the first big thing that he ever did. I don't know if it was the first thing that he got produced, but it's the first manga that I was aware of. It's the first manga that really kind of put his name on the map. There is an Uzumaki live action movie. I've started watching. I have not finished it because it's really slow, but they're turning it into an anime now. But this time it's not over on Netflix. It's going to be coming out on Max. See if there's a release date for it. September 28th. So later this month, it will be on Max. 29th rather is when it's on Max. 28th is when it's airing on Adult Swim on your television set. So super, super dope that this is happening. Just really weird because A, it's Uzumaki getting turned into an anime, which already exists in 2 other forms already. So the fact that it's going into a 3rd was unexpected, but welcome. And B, that it's coming to Adult Swim / Max instead of Netflix, where he already has a series out. So you would think that contract would continue. Maybe he only had the contract for the series. I don't know. Also, on the horizon, if you're a Junji Ito fan and you maybe missed the episode where we talked about this, he has 2 other properties that are getting optioned to become movies. So very potentially, we're looking at a future with a lot of Junji Ito, and I am very much here for it because that is horror. Again, you don't even, if you've never witnessed some of the stuff that comes out of this man's brain, start slow. 1 episode maybe at a time of the Psycho series over on Netflix, maybe find a manga that he's done something, because the more you read it, the more disturbing it gets. It's really good stuff though. Yeah, so trailer, link down in the description as per usual. That's what we got for trailers for TV shows. Let's talk now about some regular ass news. Starting things off with a really interesting sign of the times. The Tonight Show featuring Jimmy Fallon is officially pulling back. They're not going to be airing 5 nights a week like they have been since before Johnny Carson, which was 40 years ago at this point. Carson came off the air into the 90s. I mean, it was like 90, it might have been 89, somewhere between 89 and like 92 or something like that, is when Carson came off the air, and he was then replaced by Jay Leno. Jay Leno then replaced for a moment by Conan O'Brien, and then Conan O'Brien replaced by Jimmy Fallon. Carson was not the first, though, host for that. Carson was just the biggest, most well-known, kind of the guy who set the standard for what a late-night show should be. Not the only one at the time, just the best one at the time. And Carson did a show every night. Monday through Friday, Carson was on TV. There was no question. If he was not there, if he was on vacation, because, you know, he's allowed to do such things, then he had somebody else hosting his show for him. The way it's gone now is we have literally every other nightly show, be it the nightly news stuff, like the Daily Show is no longer really a daily show. It's more like a kind of sort of 3 days a week show, maybe 4 days a week show. The other late night talk shows have all drawn back already to 4 nights a week, where the 5th night is a rerun. They run one from the, I don't even know, it's not always from the week previous. It could be even further back, but the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon is the last one to do this. And I think that's freaking insane. Part of what the news media is blaming it on, and what the producers of all of these shows are blaming it on, is they just simply, they can't compete with the ready availability of streaming. Which, sure, I'm sure that's a part of the argument, but the biggest thing I think that they're missing is content. If your content is good enough, this was made very clear by what they did to Conan O'Brien, because when Conan O'Brien unceremoniously got fired because Jay Leno came back, he went to TNT and brought the content with him and brought the audience with him because the content was there. I mean, it evolved, and then people stopped paying attention, and then he stopped doing the TNT show. But either way, by and large, if the content is good enough, the audience will follow you, especially if it's on broadcast television, because ostensibly that's free. All you have to do is sit through commercials. And believe me when I say, I don't think we're very far away from that being a thing in streaming as well. So the fact that they're missing, that people just don't care for that content anymore, I think speaks volumes to the current state of the industry, because they're just clueless. They have no idea what their audiences want to see, because they have their heads too far up their own rear ends, that they think people are in absolute agreement with them on the political side of things. They think people are in absolute agreement on the socio-political side of things, and they just can't see otherwise. And I think it's kind of hilarious, not gonna lie. So yeah, sign of the times. The Tonight Show is pulling back from 5 nights a week to 4 nights a week because they just don't have an audience anymore. So I don't know, take with that what you will. Our other piece of regular ass news this week has to do with South Park. If you are an active South Park watcher, then it's been a while since you've had new episodes, and it's going to be a little while longer before you get new episodes, because Trey Parker and Matt Stone have made it very clear recently that they are not going to be touching the election. They want to wait until the election is over so that they can move on. There was an implication from one of the sources that I sourced this story through that they were tired of making fun of Donald Trump and they didn't want to do it anymore. So that's why they're leaving this alone. And I think that's very probably part of it, but also like there's too much for them to, like, they don't just pick on Donald Trump. I think to frame it as such is a gross misunderstanding of how they do their comedy, because Parker and Stone, to my knowledge, are not progressives or conservatives. They're libertarian. They're somewhere in the middle, and they just want to be left alone by their government and by people with power should do the thing that they do that leaves them out of it. So to try and paint them into some sort of corner where they're tired of making fun of one side or the other is a misrepresentation of exactly the type of comedy that they do. Because again, if you're an active watcher, you know they make fun of everybody. And I think the election is too polarizing. This is totally my speculation, but the election is just too polarizing for them to really throw their hats into. Because honestly, like, where do you start when you're those guys? When you literally make fun of everyone? Like, there's a lot. I would say there's a fair bit on both sides, but there's a lot on one other side that, again, we're not getting into that conversation. So South Park will not return to new episodes until 2025. It was not made exactly known when in 25, presumably January, February, but that could be wrong as well. The other thing that they said when they were asked about this is they're waiting for Paramount to pull their head out of their ass. And that's a minor paraphrase, but it's still a paraphrase. What exactly that means very much remains to be seen. Probably a comment on the state of things, because Paramount has kind of been up for sale to a certain degree for a little over a year at this point. Just nobody wants to purchase them, or they haven't really worked out a deal with anybody, probably more accurately. So that is very potentially the issue as well, because the rights to South Park specifically are kind of confusing in and of themselves, because you get them on Paramount Plus, but then they're also on Netflix from time to time. I think I've seen them on Pluto. Not on demand on Pluto, just on the Comedy Central channel on Pluto. So that's different streaming rights. And then they've been in a number of other, HBO Max, I believe, actively has everything but the most current season. So like, just the rights for their show is indicative of Paramount not really knowing exactly what to do with them. So I'm sure that gets frustrating on the creative side of things. So don't necessarily blame them for that part either. But that's the state of things for South Park. Let's move on from there. We're going into TV streaming suggestions. We are about a week away from new episodes for From. So this is your suggestion for the week. Catch up. Seasons 1 and 2 are both available on Amazon. You have to pay to watch season 2, but let me tell you, it's absolutely freaking worth it. Especially if you just pay the rent price, where you can only, you rent each episode for like, what is it, $2-3, and then you have 72 hours to watch the episode. Oh my God. Totally worth it. Totally freaking worth it. We're in, again, spooky season. This is a spooky season recommendation. One of the best, not like Mike Flanagan, Haunting of Bly Manor, good, but very freaking close to that. You're looking at one of the best horror properties around. Go watch From on Amazon Prime. Watch season 1 for free if you already have Prime, and then you will not be able to not watch season 2. I can guarantee it. That is your suggestion for the week. Movie section. This week, we lost a legendary actor in the movie space. Plus, Kevin Costner's magnum opus hit a little bit of a snag, and we have some trailers to talk about as well. Follow-ups for movies this week. So we have one, and it's Horizon, the Kevin Costner Western series. The first movie came out, and it didn't do so well. So the presumed budget for the movie was around $100 million. So far in theaters, the movie has grossed $11 million. So not exactly the return on investment that people were expecting when they put money into this. Most of the money, though, is Kevin Costner's, so kind of is what it is. But it has been made known that they are not going to be doing a theatrical release for the second movie in this franchise. This is going to be a 4-movie arc. Costner has made no no bones about the fact that he will find a way to make all 4 of these movies. So the first movie's made and out. The second movie presumably is made and waiting to be released, probably in the editing stage at this point. So they're on the early stages of production for the third movie and very, very early stages of production for the fourth movie. But yeah, Costner has said there will be all 4 movies, just a matter of how they're getting released. The second movie, actually, no, I think they're, I'm trying to remember again, amazing note taker, aren't I? The second movie, I think there's a what is the movie festival that's going on right now? Whatever. There's a festival going on where people take movies for awards things, and I think they're doing a premiere at the festival. They're just not going to be releasing it into theaters. That way they can still have the movie in a theater to a certain degree, just not going to be in theaters nationwide. It'll go to streaming soon, if that's what is exactly going on. But my ADD is definitely not allowing me to pull that information back up, so my apologies. That is what we have for follow-ups and corrections this week in movies. Let's talk about these trailers, shall we? So, first one, we have Wolfman. The Lee Whannell is the director for this. Lee Whannell is also the director for The Invisible Man that came out previously with what's her name from Mad Men and The Handmaid's Tale. I can't think of the actress's name. This one is going to be starring Christopher Abbott and Julia Garner. You'll know Julia because she was in Ozark. She's also playing the Herald of Galactus, whichever Herald that is going to be still remains to be seen in the Fantastic Four movie. It is set for release January of 2025. So I was not a huge fan of the Lee Whannell version of The Invisible Man. I think conceptually it works really well. It was the execution that really left a little bit to be desired for me. So hopefully he learned a little bit in the execution and will pull off Wolfman, because this looks like it's going to be a step above The Invisible Man, because I did not get super hyped for the trailer for The Invisible Man. And then when I watched it, I was like, yeah, that's kind of what I was expecting. Maybe not even quite that good. Wolfman, though, this is a step up. I'm super stoked based on this trailer, so go check that out. Next trailer we talked about this movie previously when they announced it at the film festival last week. The Donald Trump movie, the fictionalized version of Donald Trump's early life in business and things, with one of the kids from Succession is playing his mentor, Roy Cohen. I can't remember the actor's name who's playing it, but Sebastian Stan is playing Trump. It looks like it's going to be entertaining. It also looks like they are really taking a lot of liberties with the life of Donald Trump. I'm not saying that Donald Trump is any sort of saint or godsend or like great person at all, but like, this is obviously literary effect. This is obviously them taking artistic license. That's what I was looking for. They're taking artistic license with the story of Donald Trump's life. And it's within their right to do so because it is a fictional movie. But I think the timing, we have the release date for it is October 11th. So the timing for this is a little ridiculous because, like I said when we talked about this last week, there is also a Kamala Harris movie coming out, but it's not a fiction movie, it is a documentary. And while, yes, you can take any information and make it look like it is hard fact in a documentary, it's super easy. There's a number of studies talking about the effect of documentary movies on their viewers. And even if it's presenting people with provably wrong or incorrect information, as long as it's presented in a documentary format as fact, then people just take it as fact. So the fact that they're making a Trump fictional movie and a Kamala Harris documentary that are both coming out at roughly the same time is very, very suspect, but you know, it is what it is. So October 11th, go check out the trailer. It looks like it's going to be a fun movie. I don't think people should be taking it as gospel as for who the actual person of Donald Trump is. Then, oh, good Lord, Minecraft dropped, the live action Minecraft movie dropped a trailer. We've been talking about this ever since it was made known, especially since Jason Momoa was cast, but Jack Black is Steve. Como? Why is that? Like, oh, this is, I've seen it said in comment sections and in chats and things that this is intended for children. It's not intended for adults. So why are you getting grumpy about it? I'm not getting grumpy about it. I honestly am not really taking umbrage with it. I don't play Minecraft. Minecraft is not for me. I'm probably not going to see this movie until it's on a streaming service that I'm already paying for. So, you know, it is what it is. But it just, the children that play Minecraft grow up eventually. So if you're making garbage with the IP that they obviously care a lot about, like, you're still doing a disservice to your audience. Whether or not they find out that it's a disservice immediately, or they have to wait until they're slightly more grown up before they realize that they've been done a disservice to, is irrelevant, because you're still doing a disservice to your audience. It used to be when a property was made for children, they also kept the adults in mind, because the adults still have to go to the movie and sit through it and watch it with their kids, unless they're waiting. Like, you're not writing this anticipating it to do well in streaming or in physical release. You're writing this in anticipation that it's going to do well in theaters. So if it's in theaters and it's for children, that means there have to be adults there, because that's who takes the kids to the movies. So again, it used to be that you wrote a movie with, at the very least, the adults in consideration, and then you wrote it for the children with some sort of level of appreciation that their parents could have for it. Very specifically, I'm looking at the Animaniacs. The Animaniacs was a cartoon when I was a kid that I remember, even as a kid, my dad making a comment in a social situation, because he sat down and watched a few episodes with me. He made a comment in a social situation with some of his friends that, like, have you seen this anime? Like, it's definitely a cartoon show. It's definitely for kids, but a lot of the humor, most of the humor, I would say now as an adult, was geared actually towards adults, because the adults are going to have to sit through it. And it's not a big secret. They made it known. They were writing these jokes for the adults in the room, because it's easy to entertain small children. All it has to be is bright and move fast and make funny noises. But the actual words being said can be appreciated by the adults in the room, and then it just has a more broad appeal, and then you get more people in your theater. So again, making this only for children is selling not only yourself short, but your audience short. So, I'm gonna get off my soapbox now, but wow. Minecraft dropped a trailer. Go check it out at your own risk. It's not good. And then we finally got the actual trailer for Megalopolis, not the teaser, not the one that got pulled down because it had a bunch of AI generated false movie reviews from previous Francis Ford Coppola movies, because Francis Ford Coppola movies usually actually get pretty decent, if not very good reviews, even in spite of what that trailer wants you to think. This is the actual movie trailer, and goes a long way for intrigue. This even more star-studded cast than I originally anticipated when we saw Adam Driver in the teaser. I mean, this is doing the thing, man. Go check out the trailer for Megalopolis, the new Francis Ford Coppola movie. It's interesting, and I dig it, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. So that's what we got for trailers. We regrettably only have one piece of regular-ass news this week, and I teased it in the intro for the section and the intro for the whole episode, and that's James Earl Jones. 93, the man had a very full life, an incredible career, is a nerd icon, is a film icon, is an icon unto himself, not in any one specific subcategorization that you can put him in, just as a general statement. James Earl Jones was the man, was just amazing. The voice of God. Just like nobody will ever be able to fill those shoes in any respect. He had an incredible ability to act. He had really good comedic timing. Go watch Coming to America. Oh my God. He had really good comedic timing. He just was an incredible emotional actor. Go watch Field of Dreams for that one. And then those are only the ones that I'm familiar with. Like he has a much larger catalog of things. So I'm not, like, I'm sad he's gone because yes, it sucks. But again, 93, he had a good long run. He had an incredible career. He very recently, very controversially signed off on the AI use of his vocal likeness. So we will not be not hearing his voice going forward. It'll be a little different now that he's actually passed, knowing that is an AI recreating his voice. But just an incredible career to be celebrated, an incredible man to be celebrated. So we're going to take a moment and I don't even know what clip I'm about to play. I'm going to play a clip from something fantastic. I don't know. Maybe I'll try and find him voicing in the studio, voicing Vader, just because that's the biggest nerdy thing that he did. But oh man, Sandlot, he was so good in Sandlot, even though he's only on screen for like 3 minutes, like just a presence. Anyway, James Earl Jones, you will be missed. And now we remember your life.
What he needed was something more like me. They said, what do you like as a father? I said, well, I'm really a dopey dad, you know. And so they began to impose my facial expressions onto Mufasa and a different tone of voice. Yeah, he was authoritative, but he was just a gem.
So we got to bring it up from that, man. It leaves only our movie suggestion for the week, and I feel like this one you probably should have seen coming. I don't know, maybe from a little bit of the left field, because I'm setting up for the 1995 Crow, which is a great movie and you should go watch it. It's not your suggestion for the week though. This week's suggestion is in theaters currently. Still could be The Crow, but it's not. It's Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice is in theaters currently. It is absolutely a fun watch. We'll talk a little bit more in detail about like the nitpicky things that I have to say about it in this week's episode of That Just Happened, but in spite of whatever I might have to say that is slightly negative about this movie, it's absolutely a fun time. It is going to be worth your time with the kids. It is very colorful language. Again, if you've seen the first movie, you know what to expect language-wise. Very colorful language. Is PG, I think it's actually PG-13, judging by the language used, but that's only because of the language used. A little bit of gore, but nothing crazy. God, it was a hell of a fun time. I really, really dug this movie. Very likely going to see it again in theaters, maybe at the drive-in. I don't know, but that's your suggestion for the week. It's a worthy successor to the original in spite of its flaws. So that's your suggestion for the week.
Maybe. It's classified.
And then finally, the rumor mill. This week's rumor mill, the Green Lantern is apparently the next property that we just cannot get away from in the rumor mill machine. We have a couple of Venom rumors to discuss as Tom Hardy's time as the anti-hero is about to come to a close, and a possible holiday special over on Disney Plus in the rumor mill, plus a few more. Okay, so technically we have a couple of refutations, maybe, kind of. One confirmation, actually, was the Linkin Park thing. Again, talking about Linkin Park. One confirmation was Linkin Park, female vocalist. I'm pretty sure I gave that like a 60 to 70% likelihood of happening, and now it has happened. So technically that means I was right, but whatever. Not super right, because I wasn't 100% convinced. But the other one has to do with Josh Brolin. We actually talked about this last week. I don't know where this one would fall in confirmation refutation, because we got word that Josh Brolin has turned down. It's technically a rumor about a rumor, but word on the rumor mill is that Josh Brolin has turned down the offer to play Hal Jordan in the Lanterns series on Max that is going to be brought to us by James Gunn. So yeah, that's whatever. We do have some new sources for old rumors, so let's get into that, shall we? New sources are Silver Surfer. We now have a new source saying that the Silver Surfer is going to get a special presentation on Disney Plus. This was a rumor almost a year ago at this point. But kind of with all of the crazy jumbling about, it's kind of lost track. And now we have a new source coming in and saying, actually, that's still on the table. It's not 100% going to happen, but it very possibly could, according to the rumor mill. Also, new source for the Henry Cavill Wolverine situation. We have another source coming out and saying that Henry Cavill is going to be Wolverine going forward in the MCU. We've already talked about why this at this instant in time is not the case. Absolutely is not the case. They're not casting right now for that role. They haven't even written anything for that role outside of the presumably 2 cameos we're going to be getting from Hugh Jackman in the relatively near future. Beyond that, there is nothing in place for them to be casting anybody. So maybe they're considering him. That's possible. I don't think it's super likely. I think they're going to go with somebody a little bit younger. Not that Henry Cavill's super old, but like you're only going to be getting 3 movies out of Cavill like this. I mean, I don't know. I guess Hugh Jackman has kind of proved that slightly wrong. So could theoretically be going forward for a number of years, but just seems not as likely. So whatever, it's not a thing right now. Let's move into new rumors, shall we? Because that's where all the fun happens. First up on new rumors, we have Wakanda. A live-action Wakanda series is supposedly in the pre-development stages over at Disney. So we know that there is an animated Wakanda movie going on over in development stages at Disney. This one just seems to be piggybacking off of that. So just totally squashes it. And then like the source is a new source that I've never sourced from before. So just not a whole lot working for it. We're going to say about 25% like that there is a live action Wakanda movie in the works. From there, we have Man-Thing. Speaking of special presentations on Disney Plus, Man-Thing is supposedly also on the table for a special presentation on Disney Plus. This one actually, we've heard, not specifically Man-Thing, but other possibilities for what they could do here. It worked out fairly well with Werewolf at Midnight, so okay. I don't know, there's so much going on at Disney right now, you can't really take it with much more than a grain of salt. So we're going to split the difference on this one and say about 50% likely we'll be seeing Man-Thing special presentation, though I honestly would not be surprised to see a few more of those special presentation situations as they're trying to find ways to get people to come to the streaming platform because everybody's losing money at that these days. So from there, we have a Blade rumor. This one is not to do with its demise. Funny enough, we have director found for Blade. Presumably, according to the rumor, we have Chad Stahelski is rumored to be the new director for the Blade movie. If that name sounds kind of familiar, it's because he's directed, I think, the first 3 John Wick movies. I know it's John Wick movies. I just can't remember exactly how many of them. He didn't do the last one. I think he did the first 3, though, and that was it. So, yeah, Chad Stahelski, gonna put this one about 55. It's not a great source, but we do know that he has said in interviews that if he was going to join the MCU, he would want to direct Blade. So you at least have the desire from the man himself made known. So we're gonna put this one slightly above halfway there. We're gonna say about 55% likely that this one's true, though it honestly wouldn't surprise me if I'm wrong on that, and he is the guy. So anyway, from there, let's get back into Green Lantern, because apparently we're going to be visiting this one for a while. But Green Lantern, we have new rumors saying that there are 2 different people in consideration for Hal Jordan now that Josh Brolin is no longer on the table. Those 2 people are Matthew McConaughey and Ewan McGregor, both said to be in consideration for, I'm sorry, Jon Stewart, not Hal Jordan, Jon Stewart. Wait, no, that doesn't make sense. I apparently, like, I wrote down what was in the rumor leak, whatever, and it doesn't make sense. It wouldn't be Jon Stewart. It would be Hal. It would be Hal Jordan that they would be up for. Jon Stewart's a very different character. So interesting. I'm going to assume, we're going to go with what I have as the percentage on my piece of paper, but we're going to assume they meant Hal Jordan, because I don't think it would be Jon Stewart that they would be considering any of these three actors for. So Jon Stewart, both are equally as likely. There's no way to confirm or deny that they're being in consideration unless one of them gets cast, and I don't know how likely the casting would be for that, but the rumor is that they're being considered or potentially in communication with Marvel for this role. So we're going to say 50% likely, because there's no way to source that they're being considered for a thing. There's no way to confirm that. So yeah. Next we have some gaming stuff to talk about. Specifically, we're talking about Final Fantasy. With the success of Final Fantasy 14, which is, I'm pretty sure is the MMO that is available on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. I don't think it's on Switch. I'm not a Final Fantasy player, so somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that one. But we do have word that there are other Final Fantasy properties that are finally going to be making themselves over to Microsoft. Now that Sony's doing games on PC, you might as well just take some of that stuff over to the Xbox and broaden your potential sales by that much more, right? So the other games that are involved with this, presumably, according to the rumor, are the Final Fantasy VII Remake, all of the remakes that are involved in that game, as well as Final Fantasy 16 and all of the pixel remasters that are already in existence. So this is a fantastic source. Very rarely are the gaming sources wrong. So unless it's like leaks and data mines and stuff, because data mines can be misleading. But as far as like rumor goes, usually gaming stuff is correct. We're going to say about 85% likely, and that's probably pretty conservative on this case. 85% likely that we're going to be seeing those specific Final Fantasy games coming to the Xbox platform, and very, very probably even more. So from there, we have one final set of rumors, and they both have to do with Venom, the new Venom movie, The Last Dance, that's coming out very soon. The first one is a rumor about Null, who is, if you don't read the comics or you're not familiar, Null is, K-N-U-L-L, is the creator of the symbiotes. He's effectively the symbiote king, if you will, from their homeworld, which the name of the homeworld escapes me right now. Kind of a crazy badass villain in the comic books. And the rumor says that we will be getting Null in an appearance in this new Venom movie. The second rumor has to do with Secret Wars. So we're going to be seeing Tom Hardy in Secret Wars to some degree. It doesn't say if it's going to be a cameo, if he's going to have any sort of significant role or anything like that, just that he's going to have his face on screen during Secret Wars. So the first rumor, the Null going to be as a part of this movie, I'm going to give that one about 30% likely. This is a very bad source, but it wouldn't surprise me if they had some sort of Easter egg referencing Null, or maybe it's the end screen teaser or something along the, or after movie stinger, something along those lines, that there's some sort of passing reference. That wouldn't surprise me. The way it's worded in the rumor is that it's going to be a key plot point. I don't think that's freaking likely. So we're going to say 30% for Null being in the movie. And then the Secret Wars thing seems fairly likely, but the situation between Sony and Marvel is not super good these days, so we can't go super high with this one. 65% likely that we will be seeing Tom Hardy in Secret Wars once, you know, we get to that point, because they have said that this is the last Tom Hardy Venom movie, but that does not close the door to Tom Hardy being the character Venom in other movies going forward. So at least for a short time. So yeah, that's what we have this week for Rumors, Nerds. And then we're into housekeeping.
Come back in an hour.
Thank you very much for sticking around to the end, where we talk about the things behind the scenes. Housekeeping, just really quick, addressing the situation last week. I don't know how I ran out of time 2 days in a row. Part of it is just I need more RAM in my computer, because sometimes things get gummed up, and that's the bottleneck, and that really sets things back if it happens. And usually I'm able to deal with that, but for whatever reason last week, I don't know what happened. Part of it is just Adobe being super unstable, and I mean, I can't really do anything if the program keeps freezing or whatever, because it happens. Ask anybody who edits in Premiere and they'll tell you, yeah, sometimes the program just hangs. Sometimes even a project file will just be bad, just for whatever reason, eat up a ton of memory and for no discernible reason. Like I literally have a template program file that every time I make a new episode, I just copy it into the new folder and start from there. So literally every program or every project file starts in the same place. So I don't know how it happens that some of them are just bad and some of them are not. So it is what it is. That's the explanation for last week. It doesn't excuse it. I'm sorry. I am a one-man show, so you know, take with that what you will. Hopefully this week goes a little bit more smooth. But as I'm looking at the clock on the screen right now, I see that we have already been filming for approximately 2 hours. So this is going to be a hell of an edit as well. But I did film sooner this week than I did last week. Anyway, so shout out show is happening. I finally have, it usually takes me a little while to get those notes together. Finally got all those notes together. So we will be doing that this week. And yeah, it's going to be really fun. That just happened as well because we're going to be talking a little bit more about Linkin Park and Beetlejuice. So stay tuned for that. Thank you very much, nerds, for joining me for your news. If you are falling behind on your nerd news, you want to catch up, you can click or tap the box. It should be appearing somewhere to the side of my face now. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Before we go, always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here.